and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras, here with ILTV's Morning Briefing. A judge and a public prosecutor are now fighting back after being accused of colluding in a high-profile case that's connected to the Israeli Prime Minister. They are vowing that they will remain in their positions no matter what. Judge Ronit Poznansky-Katz and the legal advisor to the Israel securities authorities, Shacham Shavit, are involved in Case 4000, where there are suspicions that the owner of Israel's Walla news network swayed coverage of the Israeli Prime Minister and his family in exchange for benefits for his other company, Bezek. On Sunday, a series of WhatsApp phone messages were leaked to the public, showing the judge and public prosecutor as they coordinated their positions just ahead of the remand hearing for the suspects in the case. The alleged collusion was immediately condemned and both were put on leave, but both Poznansky-Katz and Shacham Shavit claimed that the messages weren't meant to collude, but were rather the only way that they could exchange logistical information before the hearing. Both claimed that they lacked secretaries to send along the very same information they were caught discussing. A formal inquiry has been ordered to investigate their behavior, but the judge and prosecutor deny all wrongdoing. This comes just as reports are revealing that two central suspects in the Bezek probe themselves have been busy messing around with their text messages. Nir Hefetz, the former spokesman for the Prime Minister and the owner of Walla, Shaul Elovich, reportedly banded together and deleted incriminating messages that linked the favorable coverage Netanyahu received on Walla to new policies benefiting Bezek. Both will remain in custody until next week. Palestinian groups are allegedly calling for clashes with Israeli soldiers and settlers next Friday as part of a day of, quote, popular rage. The violence is supposed to be a form of protesting the United States administration's decision to not only recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, but to also relocate its embassy to the city. Representatives of the Palestinian National and Islamic forces reportedly met up in Ramallah to discuss where to initiate these clashes. They are calling on Palestinians to gather at, quote, all points of friction, including settlements and military checkpoints, end quote. They're also calling on Arabs and Muslims around the world to stage similar protests against American policy. The United States State Department has just announced that the U.S. Embassy will be moved on May 14th from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, just in time for the 70th anniversary of Israel's independence. The move has Palestinian leadership fuming, calling on the PLO bodies to suspend all relations with Israel and to boycott all American delegations visiting the West Bank. Last week, a United States delegation of New York council members and civil society groups were attacked by Palestinian protesters with eggs when they attempted to visit the Palestinian Center for Policy and Research in Ramallah. The controversial Breaking the Silence bill has just passed its first reading in the Knesset. The bill would give the Education Ministry the powers to ban organizations who are critical of the Israeli military from entering and talking to schools. The vote passed 35 to 23, but it still has 2 votes to go. Proposed by the Education Minister Naftali Bennett himself in 2016, the legislation came in response to 3 high school principals who invited Breaking the Silence despite Bennett's prohibition. Breaking the Silence is an NGO comprised of veteran Israeli soldiers who allege abuses perpetrated by soldiers in the West Bank and Gaza. But the reports are usually anonymous, and many critics have called it dishonest, inaccurate, and dangerous. In response to the bill, Breaking the Silence wrote that those who really hurt IDF soldiers are, quote, politicians like Bennett who send us to control the Palestinians and are silent when settlers routinely attack soldiers and Palestinians, end quote. Bill sponsor and Knesset member Shuli Moalem-Rafaeli disagrees, saying the goal of Breaking the Silence and all organizations like it is not to correct, but to undermine and harm the IDF, and that, quote, the foolish attempt to attribute to the IDF a lust to murder children, end quote, would not be tolerated. The new numbers for new immigrants to Israel last year are in, and it seems Russians and Ukrainians are leading the charge, with over 7,000 new olim each. In fact, Russia and Ukraine account for almost exactly half of the 28,598 legal immigrants in 2017. What's more is that thanks to a fast-track pre-Aliyah conversion service, the Aliyah process has become more streamlined. For many immigrants who qualify for Aliyah through a spouse or Jewish ancestry, but are not considered Jewish through Orthodox Jewish law, conversion can be a very difficult step in the immigration process. But with the Maslul project, which uses a point system in line with the ultra-Orthodox chief rabbinate, applicants can begin sooner and transition into Israel more smoothly. The Maslul program's first graduate spent 3 years converting, and said, quote, it was far easier to concentrate on conversion back in Kiev, end quote. There are a few dozen more Maslul participants set to finish their conversion to Judaism this year, and hundreds more in Moscow and Kiev who are on their way. 2 Arab Israelis from al-Fahim have just been charged with plotting an ISIS-inspired attack on Jewish targets in Israel. The attack was supposed to be a suicide mission aimed at the Temple Mount or a Tel Aviv synagogue. The 2 suspects are Muhammad Jabarin and another who cannot be named because he's a minor. They will be charged with membership in and recruitment for a terror group, contacting the enemy during wartime, incitement to terrorism and destroying evidence, and more. Further, relation to other terrorists in previous attacks this year is highly suspected. Muhammad Jabarin's brother was arrested last September. Then another man picked up by the Shin Bet in January, Imad Jabarin, is also from al-Fahim in North Israel. Then in July, the 3 Arab Israeli gunmen who shot dead 2 Israeli police officers on the Temple Mount are all named Muhammad Jabarin and are from al-Fahim as well. Finally, as if that wasn't enough ISIS activity, 40-year-old Belarusian immigrant and Jewish convert to Islam Valentin Myslevsky has been sent to prison for the next 3 years for seeking to join up with the Islamic State in Syria. Myslevsky, according to the Shin Bet, is the first Jewish-born Israeli to be charged with having ties to ISIS. That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.